Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and I think it's fair to say that throughout the Switch's life cycle, it's never really had any direct competition. I think the closest thing for a longest time was the 3DS? But those particular winds have been changing recently, and we've seen more handheld devices that offer a similar gaming experience that isn't mobile, which just doesn't count. One of those consoles, obviously, is the Steam Deck, which I don't actually have. And another is the Aya Neo Air, which I do actually have. Just from seeing this alone, I'm sure you can see that, yeah, this is clearly falling into the same kind of niche as the Switch. It can even be a hybrid. You can output via HDMI if you like, if you got a dongle or a USB-C monitor. But, really, it's a handheld thing. If you're gonna plug it into a wall, you might as well use a PC. And I've given the game away because, yes, that's what this is. This is a Windows 11. I keep telling myself not to say Windows 10 because it's not. A Windows 11 PC in a handheld gaming format. And we're going to take a look at it from the perspective of someone who uses the Switch basically constantly. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Right, I'm gonna get the first most important thing out of the way straight away, because no doubt you're wondering, is this as powerful as the Switch? No. It is significantly more powerful. You're not going to be running the latest AAA games at maximum settings or anything like that, but you can play Halo Infinite on it. Technically, I mean, the fact that it's running at all is frankly incredible, but yeah, there's clearly something going on with the contrast. Apparently that's a bug that I don't have the patience to solve. But this thing can run the Xbox Series X's flagship game, and yep, I know, it's designed for other platforms as well, but crikey blimey, that should give you an idea of just how powerful this thing is. Answer: rather. What I feel is a far better comparison, though, is No Man's Sky, because it's on Switch, and it's frankly amazing that it runs on Switch as well as it does, and it's on here. And I had it anyway, because it's on Game Pass, so I didn't have to spend any money. That's what makes it so good. So as you can see on the Switch version, things have been pared back enormously. The game runs at 30 frames a second, and yeah, the visuals are kind of below low, for lack of a better term. It's got its own super low settings, but it runs, and it's perfectly playable, and it's great fun. I have a lot of fun with that version. And now let's take a look at the Aya Neo running it, and yeah, it's kind of night and day, isn't it? The game just looks better, it's a higher frame rate, and things are a little bit more responsive with things like the mining laser. Yeah, overall, this is clearly a superior version of No Man's Sky. I don't think anyone would deny that. I've been running the game at 720p because, to be honest, on a screen this small, 720p is perfectly acceptable, and you get significant improvements in performance as well, which is just good, isn't it? The screen itself is 1080p and the screen itself is lovely, but I find generally things are best at 720p. I don't notice a distinct lack of difference in quality and yeah, performance improvements, so woohoo. And we can also see stark improvements in things like Skyrim, as well as opening up mod support, which is just fantastic, and also Cult of the Lamb. This is a particularly egregious example, I feel. But Windows 11 is not designed to be controlled with a traditional controller. It has a touchscreen as well, but yeah, it's also not completely ideal for Windows 11. It's better than it was, but it still ain't great. That's why the creators have created their own software that kind of goes over the top. I mean, you don't have to, and you can just use it in traditional Windows format, but I mean, I was gonna say it streamlines the process, and I suppose it does, but it comes with a lot of caveats. The software overlay, it ain't brilliant. I can see what they were going for. It definitely streamlines things, make things bigger and clearer and easier to interact with a traditional controller, as you've got on the sides of the Aya Neo Air. And that is a good idea. The execution, however, is spotty at best. It's a bit of a mess at times. If you just load it up, pick a game, it launches. It's fine, you know, it works, but if you try and do anything more particular with it, which it does offer, it gives you a load of different options, it starts falling apart pretty quickly. The UI is sometimes not scaled properly for 720p, despite it supporting it, which is kind of infuriating. There's various like shortcuts that you can use, and it doesn't explain any of them. I mean, I've tried looking at documentation online, and it's, again, kind of wobbly. It's not super clear. It takes some experimentation, and even then, there's a lot of options that I just can't work out what the blinking hell they do. It has been updated, and it's better than it was, but you're really going to need to have something like this on hand in order to actually get around and do certain things. Certainly when it comes to Windows settings and things like that. Yeah, you can use the touch screen, but there's no replacement for a mouse and keyboard. You're just going to need it, just trust me. The unit is also really nicely made, really high quality overall. I honestly, when you consider that it's not like a big brand like Nintendo, I hadn't heard of them before, you know, all these started coming out, because we've looked at a couple of these in the past, but it is built solid. The buttons are all nice and responsive. The plastic feels really good in the hand. It's a decent weight, not too heavy, not too light, and size-wise, it's about the size of a Switch Lite. Let's check. Yeah, maybe like ever so slightly wider, but by like not much of a margin. And it's more ergonomic, so yeah. I forget I've got this thing. It's lovely. So what are we looking at here? It's a more powerful Switch-like device, you know, portable gaming unit. It runs on Windows, so you got access to Steam and, you know, Xbox Game Pass and stuff like that. That's huge. Is this therefore better than the Switch? Well, I mean, obviously there are going to be some caveats because I've clearly ignored certain aspects. The first big one is battery life. If you're running a game at full whack on this thing, and you have various different options for running the processor at different wattages and stuff like that, which is like, that's going to come in the next point after this one. But if you're running at full tilt, you will get about an hour. It's a 28 watt-hour battery, which is pretty sizable, but this is a powerful machine, and that power requires power? The thing that I find most impressive about the Switch from a hardware perspective is its efficiency. It is ludicrously efficient. People say, oh, it's underpowered, and yeah, it is, and that's kind of by design. By my admittedly very rough calculations, the Aya Neo Air draws around about 28 watts of maximum draw, you know, its peak power. And I worked that out because it's got a 28 watt-hour battery, and it lasts about an hour. If that means nothing to you, let me give you an example. So I've got this light bulb here. This is one that I use every single day. It's decently bright, but it's not going to burn your retinas out. It's just a decent standard light bulb, you know, good quality, and it's LED, so it consumes about 8.6 watts. There's 28 watts for the Aya Neo Air, 8.6 for this. The Nintendo Switch OLED draws 8 watts. It draws less than this at its peak, which is... That's why the Switch feels underpowered, because it's literally using an awful lot less power. It is sipping power. It is ridiculously efficient, and that's why No Man's Sky doesn't look as good, because it's drawing just so much less energy. That's not to knock the Aya Neo Air. It's still a great little device, and it is more powerful, but that power, it comes at a cost, a very real cost. An hour is not a very long time at all. I mean, if you buy a USB-C fast charger or something like that, then yeah, you can just play it indefinitely, but the whole point of this is it's meant to be portable, and just getting an hour, it's pretty weak, sadly. I mean, what an hour you can have, but it's still just an hour. And then we've got my final point, the double-edged sword of the Aya Neo, and that's the fact that it runs on Windows. For one thing, that's significantly less efficient than running on, like, you know, purpose-built software and operating system like the Switch. It means it can be way, way lower power, more power goes into the game and everything like that. Having said that, the Aya Neo doesn't slow it down, so no complaints. But if you're not technically minded and you are not that familiar with computers, this thing is going to drive you up the wall. You need to be proficient. in order to get this running and get it running as well as you possibly can, because you're going to be needing to tweak with settings and sort of fiddling around with things, and maybe sometimes a driver hasn't installed correctly. And if that sounds like child's play to you, then you are going to be fine with this. But there are an awful lot of people out there who will, potentially consider picking this up, get it, and not know what the bleeding hell to do. The Switch doesn't suffer with that. Everything's just super straightforward. You load it up and you just bash a game in, boom, it loads it. It's foolproof, That is not the case here. However, the detriment is a double-edged sword. Does that work when it's a positive as well as a negative? Because it's running Windows, you can run nearly anything on this. I mean, it may well be a tremendous headache to get something running, but if you can get it running, you can get it running. And I can't emphasize enough how far that goes. If you have a piece of software that can technically run on a modern Windows machine, no matter how convolutedly, you can do so on the Aya Neo Air. I honestly can't tell you how much fun it was getting a legitimate copy of Windows 95 running on this thing. I mean, it barely works, but it works. I mean, the touchscreen is orientated the wrong way, but it works. Look at whoa. And that for me is the whole reason for this to exist, not to run Windows 95, but to be an enthusiast's machine. Little Timmy and Tommy, 5 and 8 years old respectively, they don't care about this, they care about just playing games, and the Switch is fantastic at that. It is foolproof, you just buy it and games, woo! But if you like to tinker, if you like to push things to extremes, if you like to just see what can work and, damn the expense, damn the ridiculous accessories you're gonna need to get it working, This is a great device. The Steam Deck probably is as well. The Steam Deck is maybe a little bit more straightforward than this, but I don't know because I don't own one. But I do have one of these, and it's blinking lovely. If you'd like to read a different take on this console, then make sure you check out the link in the description, where you can read the excellent Damien McFerrin talk about it in our review over on Time Extension. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you request that subscribe button runs a game from 2021 in one breath, and in the next, some software from 1995. And be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye. When did that go out? Really pushing it, really driving it hard, you'll get about 28 watts.